It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region, and you need to get ready for some mirror matches, because we have mirrors in terms of classes, not necessarily in terms of archetypes. I'm That's Admirable, and I got Gallon joining me today, who I'm very thankful for, because Gallon is a rogue expert, and we have plenty of rogues that are playing today.
We see Casie versus Orange. Casie is on Pogo Hopper Rogue. Orange is on Raiding Party Tempo Rogue. We've seen this matchup a couple times, I believe, this weekend. Board Control versus Bunny Hopper. Board Control was on Raiding Party Rogue, and he won. That's unusual. I've heard from both sides that they feel like Raiding Party is unfavored in this matchup.
That's what I've heard as well, and I can definitely see it because of the way this deck is built. I'll kind of touch on it a little bit more. Long story short, Casie has 2 Acidic Swampus in his deck, and that makes Wagglepick a much more dangerous card to play extremely aggressively with. In a lot of situations where you would usually move all in, you can get very punished for it. So I can see that part of it, but I think in totality that when it comes to these kinds of rogue matchups, that Burn is king. And I can see why they're saying it's unfavored. I haven't played hundreds of games with this deck, but from my perspective and what I've seen, Burn is king. I think it's better.
You know, I think this is week 1 of the metagame. I don't think anyone's played hundreds of games with Pogo Hopper Rogue.
Maybe Casie. He tends to play, he likes to mention he's played about 100 games of a matchup when he's preparing for it.
Casie does strike me as the guy. He said he just missed sleep to get the games in our last interview.
Well, let's take a look at Casie's deck, the Pogo Hopper Rogue. Very aggressively built, and I think that's the direction this deck needs to take. I think that the interaction with Witchwood Piper and Pogo Hopper, it being the lowest cost minion in your deck, once you shuffle in multiple copies or once you just need to draw one, means that Pogo Hopper has become a powerful tempo tool that you have to build your deck around in order to take care of early boards so that you have time to utilize this card.
I also think Casey's pretty happy with how he's built his deck. If you look at it, I don't think he's switching from his primary for any of the games. He has all the cards that he wants in the matchup that he hit.
That's a true story. I'm taking a look at Orange's secondary and tertiary decks. I've seen a lot of players build their side decks in a way where they actually are removing Wagglepick to take advantage of the fact that they anticipate opponents bringing in weapon destruction. Orange has not opted for that line, but I am seeing some kind of interesting stuff here. The weird one to me is still the Coppertail Imposter War Gear deck, which is meant for almost exclusively Control Warrior or Bomb Warrior.
I wouldn't call that weird. I call it beautiful.
It's just different. It's like an interaction like when the set first got spoiled and we hadn't used any of the cards. We're like, 9/9. That's like a mountain giant, except it gets to attack immediately, and you don't cheat out the mana, and it's 2 different cards. But against Warrior, you typically have that kind of time.
I think it's just really funny how he found this specific interaction, a lineup that works so cleanly and nicely versus Warrior.
Yeah.
Coppertail Imposter just cannot be killed in the early game.
I want to apologize for the fact that we do not have Casey's camera. He is working in a different environment than is typical for him, for whatever reason that may be. I don't know. But we don't have his camera today, and if Casie is victorious in the match, we will not be having an interview with him. So I just wanted to go ahead and make that known, as now Gallon can go into his rogue stuff and start talking about what's going on. Who's favored in this situation?
I generally, in the early game, before we see the entirety of their hand, I want to say that the person on the coin is usually favored in the matchup. But if we look at the hands, Orange has an Evil Miscreant that he can combo with on turn 4. That's important.
Could combo this turn if he really wanted to.
I don't think he really wants to. He's got this Myra's. And when you go Preparation Myra's, it's better. And if you use your Preparation now, it's worse.
So what's the game plan for Orange? You know, at what point does he get aggressive, and what point does he continue to have this little dance?
Oh, he does decide to go Evil Miscreant here. Does he play the Deadly Poison this turn as well?
Now that, I'm not so sure of. I think when you draw 2 Kobold Lackeys, you're way more opting for the poison at this point. Start hitting them. The other thing, too, is that this isn't necessarily clear to Casie. You know, Acidic Swampus here, looking okay, but you have to think about Wagglepick. Is Orange trying to bait him right now?
It makes a lot of sense with Orange's hand, too. I want to point out that Dread Corsair is now a 1-mana 3/3, which is way above curve. He has Dread Corsair SI7 Agent as next turn follow-up because he specifically prepped out the Deadly Poison this turn.
And Casie free to feel like he can play Pogo Hopper and Blood Mage here, because if Orange is going to kill him, it means he's overkilling with what's face up on board anyway.
I think Orange doesn't really mind that. I think that Orange is happy to go, you know, Dread Corsair SI7, a Pogo Hopper here.
Kill the Blood Mage? It's 2 Fan of Knives in Casey's deck.
That's a little bit sketchier.
2 Fan of Knives, 2 Shivs, another Backstab.
So many options.
Backstab is the scary one.
He's already used 1.
That's surprising me. I feel like you would always go Dread Corsair SI7 agent here.
I feel like I want to kill both these minions.
Oh, you know what he's doing? He's just going to save his weapon, and then he'll get the tempo back later. Next turn.
Yeah.
You could even go this turn, hit, and then Waggle Pick.
Yeah, this is a burn deck.
And then all the minions that Casie could ooze back to your hand.
Just maximum tempo, maximum card usage.
Burn, yep.
Next turn you get Waggle Pick, Dread Corsair, Kobold, and then you get to roll into Myra's.
Did he just draw the second Pogo Hopper?
He did just draw the second Pogo Hopper.
That's a huge draw.
Stealing my lines too.
Job's done.
Well, I got to say it before you do.
Ah, fair enough. I think that was actually the best draw in Casey's deck, though.
By far.
For Orange, though, I mean, this is a very aggressive start. I'll be curious to see how much he respects the range from Casie here. You know, one of the big things I think about is just Zilliax. Every time I'm against Rogue, I'm thinking Zilliax, Zilliax, Zilliax. Like, how is that card going to hurt me if it comes into play?
That was actually so important to draw the Pogo Hopper there. I really can't stress that enough. Putting 2 3/3s in play right now is a stat line that lines up so nicely versus what Orange wants to do. And Acidic Swampoo's in hand will deal with this Waggle Pick. If Orange goes face here and ignores the board, I think he will be so far behind in tempo that he'll need to have a very good Myra's.
I think that Orange follows through on the plan. I think you use your backstab. I think you use your Kobold Lackey. I think you kill off the minions.
To be fair, when you draw 10 off of a Myra's, it's going to be a very good Myra's.
And there's more likely it's going to be 9 cards next turn. But I think Orange should continue to fight for board here. It's clear that Casey's struggling, and his answers are not strong. There's no Eviscerate. There's 1 Sap. There's no SI7 agents in the deck at all. Like, how does Orange lose if he just contains the board here with Myra's?
Myra's with an empty hand, and it is turn 6 next turn.
Casie he's fighting back honestly. There's the use. Pogo Hopper, Lab Recruiter.
Not that one. Casie really wanted to bounce the Dread Corsair.
If Casie, I mean, Casie does have some strong pickups in this spot, but they got to start happening now. He's dying.
Orange has 10 cards in hand. Is that a preparation?
Oh, I thought it was a preparation.
Yeah, same.
Still pretty good though.
Yeah, because now we can play the Shadow Step or the SI7 agent for combo.
Or what you could do is, oh, you mean with combo activated?
Yes.
So attack face for 4, Shadow Step the Kobold Lackey, kill a minion, SI7 agent another, Myra's.
Yep. That might be better.
That's major.
That might be better than prep.
That's probably better than another backstab if
it's one of the
you
best
have
cards.
one.
Yeah, it's one of the best cards you can get in your deck.
0 mana was perfect here. Full mana usage, almost. This is like every turn except 1. And I guess the prep overrode 1 mana with a Deadly Poison instead of a 2 mana card. I promise you, if you could see Casey's reaction right now, it would be flabbergasted at how powerful this has been. And my gosh, it is not stopping.
How do you even... You can't win from this spot. I think you need to get Myra's of your own, but you're going to be in fatigue at 15 and your opponent's at 27. You're not winning that battle.
You need 2 cards next turn. And you're going to have it. You have Pogo Hopper, and you have to draw exactly Zilliax, I think.
Myra's this turn into Pogo Hopper Zilliax.
So the damage from Orange is capped based on mana. So I think there's an opportunity here for Casie. I think if he draws exactly Zilliax and one of these Pogo Hoppers lives, he's got a chance.
A chance is what he needs. We're looking at a 1 in 23 to even stay alive this game.
Could have Novice Engineer into Zilliax.
That is a 2 in 23
Could
times.
have Shiv into Zilliax. So there's effectively 1 less card.
It's a little bit over 1 in 23.
Yeah, it's a little bit over that.
Orange says, I don't care.
4 times out of the 23, he turns it into a 1 in 22.
That's a lot of math. Orange is going to say, doesn't bother me. Do you ever SI7 agent the 5/2 here? Are you worried about reverse lethal?
I am curious about if Orange can actually shut down a Zilliax possibility, or if he can set up a position where even if he's counterattacked, he still has lethal and always prevents a lethal on the other side, or even maybe through a Zilliax can win.
We're going to game 2. Orange takes it with a blistering start.
It's too much damage. God, how did she remember my order?
She's a dedicated barista. How much do you tip her? Casie needs to tip her more.
Wow, I think she's done a pretty good job. Where's Ziliax? That's what I'm wondering. I need that service, Ziliax.
For a pretty...
It's blowout day here on Hearthstone Grandmasters. Players are drawing great hands, honestly, on both sides. It's been initiative that has mattered most.
You know, I actually kind of like these spots as the player. I like the games where it's over turn 5. My opponent couldn't do anything, and I kill them, so they're dead.
You know, we do have a very similar philosophy in that we both like when we've neutralized our opponents. But I like to neutralize the attack through a long series of particular plays that grinds their resources into dust.
I'm gonna rephrase what I'm saying here. I like the really short games, and then I like the really, really, really weird games. The ones where you're playing against someone else that you think is good, you respect them, and you're in a position where you've just never seen it before. Those are cool.
Orange, we got word is swapping over to the tertiary deck that he has, and what that means for him is that 2 deadly poisons are coming out. Snap is gone, Ziliax is gone, and 1 Shadow Step is gone. In its place, 2 Fairy Dragon, 2 Hench Clan Thug, and a Walk the Plank. You know, it's a list that looks like it's meant for Mage, but honestly, looks like it's pretty darn good against Pogo Hopper.
We've seen this a lot where people are switching to decks that counter Mage just to be Pogo Hopper Rogue.
It's a very similar style of deck.
We've seen this multiple times, and I feel like I've been surprised every single time. I should probably stop being surprised by it.
I mean, if you think about it, you know, Casey's side decks do not function in the matchup. He will be sticking on his primary deck. There's no SI7 agents. The major way that you're going to win is by building big Pogo Hoppers. And Hench Clan Thug threatens to dominate the board in a position where Casie does not have Eviscerate in the deck. So the answer on turn 3 is very light. It's like backstab attack it, or like backstab blood mage shiv like sort of scenarios.
You play a Thalnos, somehow it doesn't die, and you go backstab dagger.
Yeah, you could also
backstab Thalnos.
You could dagger up and follow with the Thalnos as well. The point is, his ways to take care of Hench Clan Thug and Fairy Dragon are not very present, and they're quite inefficient at best.
One thing I want to point out is that Orange switching to his tertiary actually makes that matchup a lot different. He suddenly wants to be on the play if he has a Hench Clan Thug, which is something that we don't really see from Rogue in the current metagame. And
I feel like there is some kind of battling between the synergy here with Fairy Dragon and Hench Clan Thug, where you're not necessarily getting an ideal pan out from that. Which one of those two do you think he prioritizes, or do you think he just keeps both of them in the matchup?
I think it really depends on if he's on the coin or on the play.
So let's say he's going first.
He wants Hench Clan Thug, always.
Let's say he's going second.
He does not want Hench Clan Thug on the coin.
Okay, just ever. You think he will mulligan it if he's on coin?
I think it's hand dependent, and I think a lot of times he will end up doing that, though.
Okay. I'm kind of curious then. To me, it seems like those 2 cards in tandem give you redundancy in terms of threat potential, but do not work well in tandem.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Fairy Dragon on 2 and a Hench Clan Thug on 3 is not great. You're just playing a 3-mana 3/3 after a 2-mana 3/2.
Unless you got Serrated Tooth on turn 1.
Oh, there you go.
Hey! Hey, going second.
You know, this actually, it's kind of interesting to me. Hench Clan Thug is a card that we do not see that much of in Rogue anymore. I don't think anyone really... Oh, there was maybe 1 or 2 people that brought it in their primary list. And that's kind of crazy to think about, you know? Because
that's insane to me.
Last metagame with Odd Rogue, Hench Clan Thug was the card on turn 3.
You did pretty much always dagger up on turn 2 with that deck.
Yeah.
So I think it makes more sense.
I think it's also based on the fact that we saw Raiding Party be a critical card in Rogue up until the nerfs. Waggle Pick is the best weapon in the game for Rogue.
Oh, my.
That's a good draw.
Doesn't replay the Pogo Hopper, so doesn't want to get, like, backstab coin daggered here? That's a big play around.
You know, Orange is a very smart person. If he has a backstab coin dagger, he's probably taking it, especially with a Fairy Dragon in hand.
Orange, I think, is the kind of person who will run the matchup again and again and again. I think he learns a lot, actually, like I do, where it's like you go through experiences and you make a bunch of mistakes, and then you go, these are the things that are winning me the game. Let's do those.
I just want to point out here that Orange is still thinking about what Casie wants to do next turn. He does not have the coin anymore for Evil Miscreant. He decides to play a 3/2 instead.
Okay. With Evil Miscreant drawn, I mean, it almost threw Casey's entire... That's the longest I've seen Casie think about something. And that was a big decision that ended up coming up. That was clearly his intent, was to lab recruit this Pogo Hopper at all costs.
Tempo good.
And so now for Orange, you know, this is pretty easy, second Fairy Dragon, but we're looking at board represented getting taken care of. You don't have a combo activator for your Evil Miscreant, and your hand's kind of slow afterwards.
You know, I think that this has been a very weird game overall so far. I think that both players have taken very unconventional lines in how they've approached it, and I think that they're both pretty much countering what the other one wants to do.
Yeah, they're like both playing a defensive game plan here.
I think Casie wanted to play an aggressive game plan, but Orange actually had the hand to beat that, which was the double Fairy Dragon hand, where he could go, you know, 3-attack minion into 3-attack minion. I bet you Casie realizes that. You know, he's looking at either Coin Fairy Dragon into Backstab Dagger or Coin Fairy Dragon into Fairy Dragon. So I bet you that's why he was thinking about the whole 3-3 plus 3-2 on turn 2.
It's funny you mention it. So is that like a common thing, is players think about just the absolute ideal thing their opponents are going to do in a reasonable measure and then try to make those turns awkward?
Well, a lot of times you can get a hand read based on how they play their turns. I think Orange only goes Coin Fairy Dragon in a very specific hand, you know? I think it's really only those two situations where he actually makes that play.
Okay, so if Casie did nothing on turn 1, you think that Orange is not coining the Fairy Dragon?
Well, I think that, yes, but also because Orange coined the Fairy Dragon, Casie could get a read on what Orange's hand was.
Okay. Already have Waggle Pick, so just set it up. No Dread Corsairs found. Oh boy. That's yeah, I mean, I'll take it. You're ahead.
Why not?
He just didn't answer a Snip Snap. Compound the pressure.
Orange does have a sap in his list.
Shadow Step the Ooze. Play your Waggle Pick.
That's super interesting to me. Well, you know, there's so many little things that you can guess based on how they play their turns. If someone goes Raiding Party on 4 with no combo, a lot of times they just have the Waggle Pick in hand already.
Otherwise, they would have just developed pressure.
Yeah, probably. Your hand has to be unbelievably bad to make that play with no other option available to you.
Or weirdly strong. It's very polarized, I think.
Yes, yes.
I don't know about this one, Orange. I feel like he maybe just fallen a little bit too far behind here. I mean, it's still early on, but I don't see Casie necessarily losing tempo for quite some time.
I mean, this game is just quite different compared to the last one. We are on turn 5. Orange has 8 cards in hand instead of 1.
So many options.
Yeah.
He's spent a lot of his mana so far. This is just very weird.
Huh. He's gonna be taking a lot of damage. I think Orange is really getting threatened to just be chipped away in this one. Mind you, he sought to tertiary, which means that his Ziliax is gone from the deck. He doesn't have a point of sustain.
That was super quick. That shit was very, very quick. Are you sure that that was better than just going Ziliax this turn? These guys are playing so quickly.
Well, Orange is taking his time.
Yes, but Casie...
That's Casie. You've watched Casie play. He always says this. Casie has talked actually about specifically how he plays the game more from muscle memory than he does from going through all the motions and thinking about it, because he will think too much. And so he plays a ton of games in practice so that he can recognize the situation and let his experience take over.
You know, it's really funny because this is the first time I've been genuinely confused by how someone is playing a game. I don't even know if it's right or wrong right now. He's just playing blisteringly fast. Maybe that's an advantage that he gets over Orange, where, you know, he says, boom, 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 your go.
That's Casie.
They rope out the turn. Boom, 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 your go. Giving him minimal time to think.
It's so interesting to watch because that's just the way he's always done it. In fact, when I recall the times that Casie has actively slowed down in important spots, I can recall him making some of the errors that I can recall him actively making. When he plays quickly, he's usually comfortable, he knows what he wants to do, and it's very tough to spot a play that just outright didn't look good.
That's quite fair.
This guy's toast.
Orange. Killing the lackeys over the mechs. He decides that shadow stepping those is scarier than a microbot. I agree. The punish would be Ziliax, but you don't really care about that. I think if Ziliax comes down, you are most likely winning this game. Casey's probably looking at going Ziliax, Lab Recruiter to Ziliax. It's a play that a lot of rogues have been talking about recently.
especially against a burn deck. Don't attach it. That's exactly why he didn't play Ziliax last turn.
Makes a lot of sense.
See what I mean? Like, Casie plays it very quickly. He knew this is what he wanted to do already. It's so cool to watch.
That's my fair.
He's up at 30. He's got Ooze ready for a waggle pick. He's going to be able to draw 2 cards next turn. I think that Casie is massively favored from this position.
Well, yeah, he's got the Ooze ready, but Orange knows about the Ooze. Orange isn't going to commit his mana to that play, right?
I'm just looking at his hand, and I'm curious where else this ends up going.
You got 3 1-drops. They all fight for board really well.
I'm looking at Greenskin with Dagger. Try to get that Ooze on a 2-3 Dagger, maybe.
That's another decent play. The only problem is that your Greenskin is dying on board right now. Can't we just develop the same amount of tempo, but just use our 1-drops?
Yeah, I think so. Just underspending.
Again, we're in a spot where underspending isn't the main concern right now.
Oh, perhaps. I'm wondering if perhaps you could set up the waggle pick to where Casie needs to kill the Evil Miscreant prior, or otherwise you get an Evil Miscreant back in your hand. And so to me, waggle pick and double South Sea Deckhand.
No. I think he's just doing it himself. I think he's going to go waggle pick, South Sea Deckhand, kill both, and then re-dagger.
Just override it yourself. Yep. Yeah. Wow, this is a really well-spotted line. I forget you can do that. It's something that, like, when it first happened, I was like, oh, you can just override your own Waggles pick if you need to.
You do it a lot versus Warrior, but against Rogue, it's not very common. However, Casey's running double weapon destruction, so it's actually a really nice spot from Orange to even be able to recognize a similar spot.
Ooh!
Another Ziliax!
Well, there's 2 more left.
Not the lackeys you want to see here. You want Ethereal Lackey first, and then everything else is terrible. Not terrible, but just not nearly at the same level as Ethereal Lackey.
That looked like a good upgrade to me. We turned a 1-4 into a 3-5.
What if?
I'll take it. I had a Novice Engineer and a 0-mana Acidic Swamp Ooze. I now have 5 attack in play and 3 cards in my hand.
This game is weird. This is a weird game of Hearthstone that's going on right now. Both players have kind of countered what the other one wants to do. Orange kind of countered his own play. Like, he recognized there was an Acidic Swamp Ooze in his opponent's hand. He said, you know what? I'll just destroy it for you.
I want the Shadow Step. Makes me think about the Shadow Step.
Ethereal Lackey.
So what's his ideal pull from Ethereal Lackey in this spot?
Anything that generates value. So, you know, Sprint is probably a decent card.
So we're in a pure value battle right now.
Myra's is great.
Choose soon.
Looking at Dread Corsairs as the only minions left in Orange's deck that are pirates, I believe. 2 of those bad boys coming.
That is huge.
That's just a big thing. The coins right now for Casie, honestly, are not that relevant.
I feel this is just a Pit Lord.
5/6 that when it attacks, your opponent gets a coin.
Unity, precision,
Yeah, kill it.
One weird thing about how this game is going, by the way, is Orange is at 13 life. I don't really feel like Casie has been the aggressor besides the early turns of this game, but somehow Orange has taken an extra 15 damage.
Poke damage and having to use the dagger aggressively, having to use weapons aggressively to clear. Casie also has just healed anything that he's taken back with Ziliax. Casie would be, I think, around 20-ish right now without Ziliax. But yeah, Orange has been on the back foot. I mean, turn 4, he cast Raiding Party. Not combo Raiding Party, he just played Raiding Party.
I feel like this game is going to be decided by Casey's draws at this point. I think that Orange, like, he can't really draw anything extra that makes this game unlosable for him, besides maybe an Edwin. But from Casey's perspective, if he draws his Myra's Unstable Element, I think that will be the key to just closing out this game immediately.
I wonder.
The thing about it is, from Orange's perspective, Casie does not have burst damage in the deck. There's no Leroy, no Eviscerates. Snip Snap with a mech in play is about the only way Casie can supplement the damage immediately.
Yeah, but even if he draws the Myras, if he doesn't kill Orange, he's going to have so much value and so much board presence with his Pogo Hoppers that I can't imagine Orange taking this game. You just have to spend too much mana to deal with what Casie has, and Casie will just have enough reload.
I'm thinking about just the life expenditure from Orange. You know, he's been using his life total very aggressively. He is low. I don't think that's a fear for him right now.
Specifically because Casie hasn't used, or Casie doesn't have burn damage.
Yeah. I think you know, his first 20 points of life, you're like, I don't want to lose them, but does it really matter that much?
You know, I feel like this matters a lot in Hearthstone more than other games, I would say, is that life total changes your play drastically. Like, if you know what your opponent's range of damage is...
No. He has nothing.
Ooh, this is weird.
The game turns around this turn.
But why didn't we play? I guess he wants to. Okay, so I understand what it's Casey's doing.
Conceal information.
Exactly. I was thinking about Myra's Unstable Element being the draw that we wanted, but Casey's saying, oh, now you can play your Waggle pick.
I mean, he's about to just die. He did nothing to affect the board. That's when this rogue capitalizes.
That's what I'm saying, man. You need your Myra's Unstable Element here to have a chance in this game. Myra's is good. When you have no ways of generating extra cards besides Evil Miscreant, which we've already seen one copy of, you're looking at your Myra's as your out to win this game. I think this is something that Pogo Hopper Rogue can struggle with a bit, is that if they gas out and they don't find their Myra's, they can be in spots where they're kind of at the mercy of their draw phase.
I feel like just Orange navigated really well to bring it to that state too. He didn't let himself get tempoed by playing out a Waggle pick and getting used. He overrode it himself to generate value and keep, you know, Casie fighting for board the entire time.
Even how he played the early
Casie
game.
struggles.
Even how he played the early game, he went Coin Fairy Dragon
To trade.
Yes. He had an Evil Miscreant in hand, and he decides to go Coin Fairy Neferi with no combo activator for his Miscreant. Honestly, if he had taken that extra damage in the early game, he probably would have just died.
Come dance to my song.
That's game. Casey's dead.
Orange takes it, 2-0.
Leroy Dagger. That's it. Let's stack an Eviscerate on top of that. Holy smokes.
Orange is doing the math once again.
He just fought for board. I feel like this deck's not supposed to do that.
This is pretty crazy. You know, this is actually where I think his switch to his tertiary deck was quite impressive.
He recognized that his life total wasn't a big ideal. He recognized that the burn damage from Deadly Poison wasn't the facet by which he won the game. It was by containing the pressure. The moment that Casie stumbled, that game was over. Up until that point, it looked like Casie could still win. But the turn is first turn dead, deep into the game. Over.
Yep. I think the addition of Fairy Dragon really showed why that's important in that matchup. I was kind of doubting it, but in that specific game, they really pulled their weight.
And I think that's pretty good recognition, because I think against some rogues, it is true that card's not going to shine. And that's specifically against rogue decks that run SI7 Agent, which is, you know, almost all of them at this point. Pogo Rogue isn't a deck that's afforded that opportunity, A, because you need to fit in other cards. So making room for it, I think, is difficult without making a big sacrifice somewhere else. And then B, that's not the main focus of your deck. The main focus of your deck is generating Pogo Hopper to a big state and then taking advantage of that. So SI7 Agent just disrupts your own game plan, I feel like, in that regard.
You know, this just goes back to how well I think Orange crafted his lineup. I was saying earlier that I thought this was specifically for Warrior and Mage, but he somehow managed to find 5 cards that work wonders against Mage that also give him a benefit in a matchup that I wasn't even sure was going to be brought to anyone for anyone in Grandmasters. Pogo Rogue, that is not a matchup that I was considering.
Gallon did say to me before we went into casting that he thought Pogo Rogue could show up. He was skeptical about it, but Gallon's also been preaching a lot about utilizing your side decks to the full degree, which Orange definitely did. Orange is ready for an interview. Can you hear us? Mic muted.
Mic is muted.
Whoops, that's the second time now I do that. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I did not prepare for the deck for Pogo Rogue. it was there against the Mage and Mech decks. But, so, I'm happy to work against Pogo Rogue.
So how did you discover that it was pretty well suited against the deck? I mean, I think when I look at the list overall, top down, you know, my only focus is being able to present these games, and so when I start thinking about it, I'm like, wow, that actually makes some sense. But it only started to make sense once I had heard that you had swapped your tertiary deck. So talk to me about how you found out I was good.
Well, it's actually quite funny because Casie and Bunny that brought Pogo Rogue, they are facing me, Boar Control, Casper, and Fino as their 4 matches this weekend, which meant that we had to do a lot of practice like within our group against Pogo Rogue. So Boar was the one that did most of the testing early because he was facing Bunny earlier this week. And he told me that cards like Hedgeclan Thug and just stuff that got on board was really good against them because they don't run the standard removal like Eviscerates. And it's like, if they don't have Miscreant, it's very hard for them to deal with like a wide, big board, which makes like Miscreant absolute best card in the matchup. But when I can swap into my Tertiary deck and just swap into more stuff like Fire Dragon and Hedgeclan Thug, which is quite efficient against decks with not too much removal, it became pretty clear, and we tested it for a few hours, like primary and tertiary, and eventually we just came up with it. Like tertiary is a lot better versus them.
Well,
Happy accidents, I would say.
serendipity.
Orange, I actually have a spot in that game related to your tertiary deck. You decided to go Coin Fairy Dragon on turn 1. I thought that was pretty excellent of a play, but could you tell us what's going through your head in that point?
So the first thing that came into mind is that Casie full kept. He kept the entire hand, and he goes Pogo Hopper Shadow Step, right? And he doesn't play it again, which to me just screams like he just might as well put it like face up on the table that I have Lab Recruiter on my following turn. And so I was considering like Miscreant is the best card in the matchup, and you'd love to coin it out on turn 2, but if I just pause that turn, he plays free Pogo Hopper and Lab Recruiter, and I just coin a Miscreant. Then he has like value trades with Dagger and like all that, and I'm just like significantly behind, and I'm not sure if I can get back from that. So I thought that fighting for the board with Fairy Dragons and then hoping that I can find a combo enabler later for Miscreant would have to be the play. But yeah, basically, I had to read that it had the Lab Recruiter as well, so.
Makes a lot of sense.
And so now you face Casie, and you got the better of him this time around. I imagine that feels pretty good, but kind of looking forward, all your matches in Grandmasters are now going to be rematches. Is there anything that's changed in your approach to Grandmasters, or is there any opponent that you're particularly scared of or perhaps happy to face in the back half of that?
Well, I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm scared of anyone. I'm really looking forward to play Casper again, not next week because of Vegas, but the week after. Like, playing against Casper is always pleasant. I don't know. My approach has changed a little bit from how I pick decks, etc. What is intriguing about now all the rematches is that I've been switching up deck every single week now, and I don't really think that I can keep it up, like play 3 other different decks for the rest 3 weeks. Like, I don't think that's happening. So like now you gotta like be smart about when you recycle your decks, so to speak, to not be predictable. And I think that's kind of also look into your opponent's patterns of what they brought. When I faced Casie the first week, I had like, it was her first Grandmaster match, right? I had no clue what he would bring or like what his tendencies were. Now we have a lot of data to go back from and look at what our opponents are going to bring to the table. Well, and I feel like I've been pretty good at hitting my opponents. I've been very happy going into pretty much every one of my Grandmaster matches. Felt like at an advantage, except a few. So I hope I can keep that up.
Which ones did you not feel like you were favored in?
Well, ironically, the one Hunter versus Rogue against Casper the first week, I didn't feel favored in. And then it was like against Radu, Mage Mirror, I didn't feel favored in either, because even though I had tech for the Mage Mirror, he had teched even harder. And then for this one, I like for this match right now, in testing, we actually, today I went above 50% win rate, but both me and Boar kind of concluded that this matchup is like slightly below 50, we think. So I'm happy to get out of this one.
Well, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of bad news here. You've broken your streak of tendencies now, where you are no longer 100% versus past, present, and future world champions, and 0% versus else, because Psycho and Casie cannot both be the world champion this year. So hopefully that doesn't affect your confidence too much in that one. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's no comment available for you because we're out of time on that one. So thank you very much for your time, Orange. I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Yeah.
At one point, he was literally only beating former or current world champions. It's finally been broken this week.
That's a hard streak to keep up when you're playing 14 matches.
It's also just a hard streak to keep up if you're going to be a professional Hearthstone player, because not everyone you face is a world champion. So you need to kind of be beating the rest of those as well.
It's good for show matches, specifically
Great
show
for
matches. Any other format, no. Tavern Brawl.
Let's take a look at the standings and see where he's at after that. Up to 4-4 score right now. The one thing that this advanced to finals section is not accounting for right now is the actual technical tiebreakers that come into place when calculating this score. So right now they are in a 5-way tie for second place, which will be calculated at the end of the week. All the other factors that build into a tiebreaker for a final standing that goes into that point. Until then, though, consider it a tie for second. We'll have an update later on as the weeks pan out and as we have that final score done.
A lot of 4-4s.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You wonder how Psycho is approaching the game where he can get that extra edge. He does not want to tell other people.
He's playing good. Just go watch the games. That's how. My goodness, like he's had some good hands, but that's part of the winning combination in Hearthstone. You got to build a good deck. You got to play it well, and you're going to have to get a little bit fortunate. And so far, he's been the killer combination of those three.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, I urge some of the players to look back at their games. I think there's a lot that you can learn from rewatching. I think that there's a lot of questionable stuff that's happened this weekend so far. I think there's been a lot of brilliant stuff too. But to get better at Hearthstone, you can't just focus on the things that you did right. You also have to focus on the things that you've done wrong.
Indeed. And so with that, it means our second match is in the books, and Orange takes it by a score of 2-0 over Casie in a reversal of fortune from the first match they faced. And now another one coming up, Bunny Hopper versus Phenomeno in our match of the day. Pheno, the lone undefeated player in Grandmasters. Can he continue that streak? We're going to find out right after this.